Today we continue to work on our snake game variation. Last time we worked on introducing enemy clones, and today it's all about collision detection, ending the game, showing some game over screen, and enable the restart of the game. Let's jump right into it. We can find our global game state, which is game, and introduce a new property here, which is game over. Let's find our init game method, and first of all we need to fix this initialization of clones array. We can explicitly set it to null, and then we can say that game over is initially false. Now what is this game over flag? It should affect how our main loop runs. We can allow handling of input even if the game is over. We should update the tile while the game is over, like all the animation keeps rolling. We can still allow to move the clones, so if we collide either with ourselves or with an enemy snake, we will keep the clones moving, but we will stop our player snake from moving. And to do that, we need to put this block into an if statement saying that, alright, only if not game over, we can then move the snake, the player snake, and check for collision with the food, do the clones adjustments, and finally we can then, after the snake has moved, we can actually try and figure out whether the game over flag should be set. So we can introduce new function, check for collisions, or collisions with game player as usual, and it needs to return a boolean. And as I said, the player snake can actually end the game in two ways. First of all, it can hit itself, or it can hit an enemy snake. So let's first try to figure out how we can check for collision with ourselves. To do that, we need to first grab our head position. So position head is as easy as not game, but player tiles 0. That's our head, the first tile. And we need to know the length of our snake. The length is array length of player tiles, the total count of tiles. That's our length. And then we need to iterate over all the remaining tiles, not the head one. And we need to figure out whether the tile has the same position as our head. So player tile set I, and we can check if p row is the same as head row, and this tile column is the same as head column. We can instantly say that, hey, yeah, there is a collision, and we can flip the game over flag to true. Otherwise, like, it's false. And second thing that we need to also do is check whether our head is at the same position with any of the clone snakes. To do that, we need to first know the clone's length, how many clones we have. That is game clones. Then we can iterate over each clone. We can grab snake clone by its index. Then we need to know the length of the clone. We can reuse the lane here as it's no longer needed for clone tiles. Right, it's actually snake tiles. iterate over each tile of the enemy snake. Again, we grab this position P, which is clone snake tile set to position J, and do the same comparison. So if the tile of the enemy snake has the same row and same column as our snake head, then we have collided. Let's test it out. We're running, everything is fine. Let's first try to hit some enemy. I missed him. Alright, so our snake just stopped. And we actually crashed there. You saw that as soon as the enemy snake reached our position, the final position where we have stopped, the game crashed. And why did that happen? Probably happens because of the smooth clones, which we run regardless of game over or not. And inside of it, what we do is we always increment player path index and then try to grab the next position from player path. But as you can understand, once the game is over, the player is no longer moving, which means that player path is no longer growing, and eventually the snake clone reaches the final tile and tries to grab the next position, which doesn't exist. So that's why the crash happens. So to fix that, we need to first grab the player path length and then compare here, like if our clone player path index has reached this length, then we can no longer move it, so it will remain at the same position as our player. We can test it out again. If I collide with an enemy just reaches our position, and that's it. Let's see how game over works when we collide with ourselves. First, let's try to grow a bit, and then do bam. So I collided with myself, and then one snake reaches me, the other enemy reaches me, and nothing crashes. And at this point, we can see that there is a simple bug here. Last time, in last episode, we introduced this specific color for a tile where the player is, and at the same time the enemy clone is there. And I tried to put it as somewhat like a pinkish style. And now you can see that these three tiles are actually red, but they should be the same color as this one. Why did that happen? Let's see where we use it. Alright, so we have this method, snake mark tiles, and this section worked well, considering if we have only one enemy snake which hovers at the same position as our player snake. But as you can understand, player now can be on this tile if this tile state is either player state or it's actually already clone and player state. Same applies to clone. So we need to fix it by checking for both states. So is player tile, it means like tile state is actually either player tile or it's a clone and player tile. The same can be done for is clone tile, if it's a clone tile or clone and player tile, just because we iterate. Yeah, we have like many enemies, each of them uses the same method and marks. It can override this clone and player tile. And now we need to substitute this one by is player tile, and this section is clone tile. Let's run it again. Let's have a few enemies spawned. Then we can collide and wait and see. All right, it seems to be working now. Okay, all the small issues fixed. Now what do we do? Right now the game is a game over state. We can press the buttons but nothing happens. We have to close our game and start it again if we want to play if we want to play it once more. What we want to do is, of course, to enable the user to restart the game, and that can be done in our while loop somewhere at the end. Once we've drawn everything, we can do a simple check that if our game is over and there is a key pressed, let's say key enter, then we can restart game. What is a restart game? Well, we need to do some cleanup. So if there is a player path, which there should be, we can free it. If we have clones, we can also free game clones, and then we can run our init game, which does all the ground up work to init everything from scratch. If we try to run it, let's try to hit our first enemy clone, bam. And if I press enter, the game is successfully restarted. Hit him again, press enter, and it is restarted. So what we need to do now is to somehow show our player that the game is over and that you can actually press enter to restart the game. Where can we do that? We can do it right here. When we are drawing our grid, we can check that if game is actually over, let's draw game over. Draw game over. What do we need in order to draw game over? So we need to have some text, game over text, which says game over, and we need to have some text which says restart game, like, press enter to restart. Now we can use something like draw text in probably this extended version. Alright, so first of all we need some font for that. The text is our game over text. There is some position which we don't know anything about. Font size, let's define that. So game over font size will be something like 70. See whether that works or not. Game over font size, spacing is 0, tint is white. Let's break it down as we're gonna be adjusting a few things. And same applies to our restart game font size. Probably should be like a bit smaller. Same font. Text should be restart game text. Should use this size. Alright, so what is this font? Let's do like arcade font. As we're writing some arcade game. Arcade font. So if we search for arcade font, we can find this one. I have already downloaded it. It contains 3 different fonts: Arcade I, Arcade N, Arcade R. We can try either I or N. Let's do the N first, see how that works. This is going to be a global font. Let's say arcade font. And then in our main we can say that arcade font is just a lot font, and I have already put it into the fonts folder, asset fonts, arcade N, I think it was called, and then draw game over is actually using that game font. Let's see whether it works. Bam, and it draws things at position 0,0, right? So it's in the top left corner, so we need to position it somehow. So let's say we position it in the middle, like we have game width, we can divide it by 2, and y is game height divided by 2. Let's see what changed. Bam. All right, and now this position is actually in the middle, and the whole text goes to the right and down. So we need to adjust this position based on the width of the text, of the drawn text, and the height of the drawn text. So what we need to do is we need to say that game over just size, probably. Is it like measure text? Something measure text. Yeah. Font text font size. So it says, hey, if I draw my text using our arcade font, using game over text with font size game over font size with 0 spacing, it will calculate the width and the height of this text, and then we can adjust it, saying that, hey, I need to adjust it based on the size X and game over size Y. So it should center the game over, right? So we're actually calculated the middle of the text horizontally and vertically and adjusted it here. Now we can also position our restart text, probably by saying almost the same thing here. We need to calculate restart game size, restart game text, restart game font size. Then we can use it here. Right now it will draw on top of game over, which we probably don't want. So yeah, we need to adjust the positions a bit. So first of all, let's try and move the game over a bit higher. So instead of middle, let's put it 1/3 of our height, and this one let's do 2/3. All right, bam, looks much better. Let's maybe try to reduce the size of this, maybe do even. Bam, yeah, looking good. And you can see that once the game is over, the clone is still running. Let's spawn a few more clones so that the game over shows a bit more animation once we're collided. Yeah, you see that we can move, but the clones are moving. What else can we do? We can also maybe fade fade the tile grid once the game is over, so that it's not like as bright as our text here, because if our snake dies somewhere on game over, it will blend, won't be as nice as it is right now. So where do we draw tile grid? Over here, and we have this color. We grab it based on the state, and what we can do is we can adjust by using fade, checking that if the game is over, let's do what's it called, like alpha, right? So half transparent, the color is half transparent. Let's quickly glide, bam, right? It's somewhat visible. Let's try to adjust it a bit, maybe 70%. Again, let's run the game for a bit more. For example, hit the third one. Yeah, you see, it looks somewhat nice. And then if we press enter, it resets the state. Works nicely. Bam. Now the thing is that this game over screen, it appears instantly. We don't have any sounds yet. Hopefully by the end of this project we will have some sounds, and it will make game over screen pop with the sound. But what I would like to do is to add a bit of like animation to the screen. I'm thinking about two things. First of all, I want to scale it a bit so that the screen gets a bit bigger and then reduces to its original size. And second effect I would like to apply is some basic shaking. Yeah, so that's the plan. That's the plan. So let's start with something like ScaleEffect. Let's introduce some ScaleEffect. What do we need for ScaleEffect? Pretty much we just need a duration, how long we want it to last, what is our current scale, and what is our target scale. Right, so in case our scale is different from target scale, for maybe not the duration but speed, right? Oh my god, can I type? Speed. And using this speed we will try to move the scale towards this target scale. So in our main we can probably say that, hey, I have now this ScaleEffect. We need to give it a few defaults. So scale initially it's 1,0 and target is 0, meaning we don't need to do any scaling. And the speed, let's say like 5 or something. All right, so where do we apply the ScaleEffect? Right, we apply it actually right over here. So first we draw everything into frame buffer. As you remember, our frame buffer size is different from our window size. And then we grab that frame buffer and draw it into our window. Now, we would like to draw it into a bigger window. So first of all, let's do what we do. We extract this one, we set it as destination, extract it above, and say that rectangle destination is this. So this is X, this is Y, this is width, and this is height. So if I run it, yeah, it's not used. We can say maybe unused for now. Alright, so nothing really changes, everything continues to work, everything is drawn as before. But what we want to do is we want to say that, hey, I'm going to draw into scaled width and scaled height. What are those values? Scaled width is actually our initial window width times ScaleEffect, its current scale. And same applies for scaled height, which is window height times the same scale factor. Again, if we run it, there is no difference from before. But if we default the scale to 1.3 and run it, we can already see that, hey, our thing is displayed differently now. Yeah. So we have drawn our field or our frame buffer into a bigger window, so to speak, thus creating the scale effect, but everything is drawn from this 0, 0, and we still want it to be centered as before. To do that, we need to make a small adjustment. Let's see. Initially, we drew into window width, and we knew that that's what our window width actually is. Right now, we're drawing into scaled width, which is bigger than window width. So what we do is we take the difference between the scaled width and our desired width, and we need to divide it by 2, because there should be part on the left and part on the right of the same width from this difference, and we need to shift the whole image to the left, so we need to apply the minus, negate this whole thing. Absolutely the same logic applies to our height, minus height, and now if we run the game, it's actually centered as before. God damn it, I don't see no foot, it's hidden. It was just outside our drawn window, and now you can see that GameOver is correctly like centered. So it's a scaled image, and actually, like if you see my mouse, the image is drawn something like this, right outside of our window. And what we want to do now is, if the scale effect is present, meaning that the scale value is different from our target scale, we need to reduce it. Where do we do that? We do it, let's do it here. Let's update our scale effect, give our scale effect and this time that has passed in the frame. Update scale effect, given scale effect and delta time. First of all, we need to check if effect scale is different from target scale. Only in this case we can say that, hey, effect scale is what? We need to do this effect target scale minus effect scale times dt and times effect speed, right? So we know that our scale will always be bigger than target scale, right? Which means that this value is going to be negative. And then we have some speed, which is per second, and this is delta time, just a fraction of a second. We could rewrite it by using minus and then scale and target scale this way. So absolutely the same thing. And now we need to check if effect scale minus effect target scale is less than some epsilon. We can set it to target scale, right? So once we reached scale which is pretty close to target scale, we are sure that no more effect needed. We can probably wrap it in absolute value just in case. and see what it does. No, you saw, no, because we are setting the effect to 1.3 in the beginning, you saw that once we start the game, once we load it up, our game field is scaled. It starts as scaled with 1.3 right here, right, 30% or something, and we are reducing the size. So let's start with normal 1.0 scale, so the usual window width, window height, and then once we detect that the game is over, we detect it right here, right? So in this if, we know that the game isn't over yet. We check for collisions, and we say that if game has ended right now at this particular frame, we can set the ScaleEffect scale to 1.3. See how that works. So while we're playing the game, everything is fine, but once I hit an enemy, bam. If we reduce the speed to something like 1.0, you can see that it goes much slower, right, until it reaches it. So 5 seems to be an okay value, and we no longer need this attribute because we're actually using the ScaleEffect. So it kind of looks a bit better, as you can see, like visual feedback, that GameOver, but I would like to add another effect, which is going to shake the screen a bit. Type def struct ShakeEffect. And here we need actually like duration for how long we want the shake effect to last, and intensity, how intensive this shake should be. We can then define it here, ShakeEffect, provide some defaults to it. So let's say initially duration is 0, it means ShakeEffect is not active. And intensity, let's put something like 20. We will update our ShakeEffect the same way we do with ScaleEffect. Void, we have ShakeEffect and delta time, except that here we need to check first if effect duration is greater than 0. So it means ShakeEffect is active. We need to simply reduce this duration, and if effect duration became less than 0, or maybe even less than 0, then we can say that duration is 0. So the effect is no longer active. And again, like, where do we use that effect? We use it again when we are drawing things, when we're drawing it to our window. We cannot apply the ShakeEffect here when we're drawing to frame buffer. We want the frame buffer, the whole picture, to be drawn correctly, and then we apply this as a post effect. So we need to have some sort of shake offset, which is by default 0, and then we can check that if ShakeEffect duration is greater than 0, which means that the ShakeEffect is active, we can then change the X to something and check the Y. It's actually going to be get a random value from shake offset, not the offset, but effect intensity up to shake effect intensity, except this is negated. So if you remember, this is 20, so from -20 to 20. Same for Y. So which means that we would like to displace our image by some random value vertically and horizontally. So we can do it right here. So we're currently drawing the image. If it's scaled, we apply correct adjustments, and then we can add some random. So this can be written as plus shake offset x, right? So we apply random offset so that we draw an image either a bit to the left or either a bit to the right, and same vertically. Shake effect y, well, not the effect, but shake offset y. So it means that the image is going to be displaced by some random intensity vertically. Let's see how that works. So if I hit, nothing really happened. Interesting. Why didn't it work? So no, of course it's because we set ShakeEffect defaults. Duration 0 means ShakeEffect is not active, and once again, once we detect that the game is over, we need to actually say that, hey, let's do like half a second shake. So let's see. We run it, like a light, bam, you saw it. I believe it's a bit too long, so I have reduced the time for the shake effect. Bam. I guess it looks much better now compared to static variation that we had before. All right. So this is pretty much everything I wanted to show you guys for this episode. And next time we will introduce the length counter for our snake, because the longer you play the game, the harder it is to tell how many foods I have eaten, how long my snake is. We will introduce the counter somewhere on the top of our game field, and also try to apply a couple of effects. Maybe some shaking, but a bit different style of shaking, maybe some scaling, we'll see. One more thing that I probably forgot to mention is that our shake effect that you see, it's very basic, so you will probably never use it in an actual game, as there are much better techniques, but for our use case this variation works just fine. But if you want to introduce ShakeEffect into a game, I suggest that you research a bit and find a more beautiful solution than this one. So again, if you liked this sort of content, like the video, subscribe to the channel, helps me a lot. Thank you guys, I'll see you again.